One bright, sunny day, the Yugetsu Academy holds its opening ceremony, led by the well-respected Student Council President, Shindo Erina. Now that we've had a look at such an upstanding and lovely young lady, it's time for a palate cleanser. Among the crowd of students is a degenerate who's looking at all the girls there and getting all excited about, drumroll please, their twin tails. But they're not just twin tails for Mitsuka Soji. No, they all have their own categories, their own lore, their own gospel. For example, one girl has lovely and simple twin tails. For the uninitiated, those are called strawberry tails. He then glances at his friend, Aika, but she's pretty irrelevant right now, so he shifts his attention elsewhere. Like the girl in front of him, she has a rare style to her, the innocent tails. But we cannot forget, of course, the president. Her noble and beautiful tails ending with soft curls, giving an airy and weightless impression to them. Her cultured upbringing shines through her pristine twin tails alone. And to Soji, seeing them is like watching a princess gliding across the ballroom floor. And for this dude, these next 3 years of high school are going to be good. Now back in the classroom, Soji's daydreaming while staring at a club questionnaire. The correct answer is always twin tails, he thinks. Since he was too preoccupied with daydreaming, he ends up rushing when it's time to turn the questionnaire in. And without realizing it, Soji wrote that he wants to start a new club called Twin Tails Club. When the teacher asks him about it, his soul goes kaput from his body, while Aika's too embarrassed to even acknowledge his existence. While they're walking home from school, Aika mocks him for exposing himself, and Soji retorts that it was just a Freudian slip in writing. She says that's even worse before calling him a twin tails hound and teasing him with her own double T's. Soji tries to hit her, but she dodges every punch. In turn, she throws a classic kick, which Soji is quick to defend against. Aika then pushes him, backflips on his shoulders, and lands with a cute and adorable pose that leaves even Soji mesmerized. Taking advantage of the opening, Aika launches a punch towards his face, but she stops midway and flicks his nose instead. He finally relents, admitting that she's unbeatable, while Aika reminds him to stop by their house since her grandpa's asking him to come train. After they have done their forced, "oh let me show you how badass I actually am" choreography, Aika demands curry from Soji's business as a treat. Before he can react, his mom, Miharu, passes by. She says she has left some food for the both of them and sneakily whispers in Aika's ear, "Soji's the dessert if you catch my drift." Now, I'd call my imaginary son plenty of things, but dessert probably isn't one of them. Of course, Aika is shocked and flustered, but she doesn't say a word to Soji about what his mother told her. While all of this is happening, a mysterious white-haired girl observes them from behind a bush. Soji and Aika then head to his cafe, where they notice something suspicious. Not from afar, the same white-haired girl is reading a newspaper when she realizes that she's being stared at. Soji tells her they're closed for the day, but the girl is completely unbothered. Hell, she even pokes a hole in her newspaper to see them better. Then a beeping sound turns on, and she pulls out a device from her twin peaks. With her coquettish act in full swing, she approaches them both, asking if she can sit with them, which pisses Aika off. She's about to push the stranger away but is taken aback by a force field surrounding her body. Smiling, the girl announces that she can't be hurt before introducing herself as Twirl. She then asks Soji, "Do you like twin tail?" "I love them!" Soji responds without even thinking, but once his brain started working again, he immediately regrets it. Twirl, however, is pleased with his answer and shoves a red bracelet towards him, telling him to take it. Annoyed, Aika pushes her away and warns Soji that this is a scam, but Twirl's quick to deny the allegations. This time, she puts on a damsel in distress act and insists that she'll be able to do anything once he puts that bracelet on that great big tree trunk of his. Nice and tight. While Aika's snapping at Twirl to stop with the innuendos, Soji's thinking about how great twin tails would look on Twirl, but the girl isn't slowing down at all. No sir. In fact, she promises Soji she'll do anything he wants, whether it's vanilla flavored or something spicier. It's all free real estate. Aika knows for a fact that he'll just ask her for twin tails, which sparks an idea in Twirl. She starts boinging up her boing-boings, telling Soji that he can start with her pudding. Since the boy doesn't seem entirely convinced, Twirl aims for the juggler and claims that without Soji, pigtails will cease to exist, causing the boy to panic and place his hands on her shoulders. And gotcha! Finally, Twirl puts the bracelet around him. It glows, and the strange girl brings out a map. With a single flash of light, the three are taken to the convention center. Not far from them, a girl lies on the ground, and Soji recognizes her as Strawberry Tails. But this time, she isn't wearing them. She doesn't remember what happened to her, nor her love for Twin Tails. Soji is horrified by this, while Twirl informs him that the Elamarians attacked her and stole her Twin Tails affinity, which is the part of her that loves Twin Tails. Oh no! Is this the start of a pigtail-apocalypse? Side note, take a shot every time we mention Twin Tails. Viewer discretion is advised. Screams suddenly filled the convention center grounds as several unknown creatures shoot large bubbles. Getting closer to the commotion, Twirl confirms that these monsters are the Elamarians, headed by a more giant lizard called Lizard Gildy. Asuka, a young twin-tailed girl clutching a teddy bear, is caught in one of the bubbles. She falls on Lizard Gildy's arms, and he feels the raging energy her twin tails possess. He orders his subjects to prepare the setup, which are studio lights, a red carpet, a couch, and lots of stuffed animals. Lizard Gildy urges Asuka to walk to the couch, saying that the bunnies and other stuffies are waiting for her. But then one of the minions interrupts this, as he informs his boss that they caught a girl with outstanding twin tails. And who could that be, if not the student council president, Erina? She tries to be as brave as she can, but Lizard Gildy takes away her twin tail affinity using his sacred ring. As the ring gets close to Erina, she loses her twin tails. With life as Soji knows it crumbling all around him, he grows furious and asks Twirl what he can do to help. She tells him to transform using the bracelet, so he'll be armored with combat gear more powerful than the monsters. Aika, of course, doesn't let this fly. What if it's dangerous? Soji calls her an idiot. The fate of Twin Tails is at stake here! F the consequences! And with that, Twirl tells him to wish for his transformation, which activates his powers. A flash of light fills the area as his normal clothes shift to his battle armor. In just a second, he transforms into a dashing and handsome... Okay, wait, scratch that. He transformed into a cute redhead twin-tailed girl. And now we present to you the tail gear. Somehow this skimpy battle armor is the only equipment that's effective against the enemies. Incredulous, Aika smacks Twirl on the face. Why did her friend suddenly become a girl? Good question. Channeling a monk's zen, Twirl just says that the reason is still a mystery right now. For now, they must focus on Soji and whether he can fight. Speaking of, the giant lizard quickly orders his minions to attack Soji. Though he's confused at first, Soji subconsciously hits them with force so powerful, they're sent flying to the nearby buildings. And to grace the enemy with an elegant entrance, he introduces himself.
Hearken my words, monster! I am... Wait, who am I?
And since villains are polite creatures who patiently listen to the hero's monologue instead of attacking, Soji gets the chance to name herself, Tail Red. She quickly jumps off the ground, and she gets so high up in the air that she can't control her own force. This ends with her landing face flat on a building's roof. As she turns her back, the giant lizard is face to face with her, admiring her strength and beauty. He immediately asks her if she can hold the doll for him. Yes, officer, this lizard right here. Tail Red frantically escapes Lizard Creepy here, with Twirl advising her to create any weapon she likes using the ribbons on her head. She quickly touches them and visualizes a sword. In a split second, Blazer Blade appears in her hands, ready for combat. She quickly strikes Lizard Gildy with a hard blow. However, the enemy is unscratched and says he will never give up until Tail Red's holding all of those stuffed animals for him. Now it's his turn to show his ultimate ability. Secret technique: lightning sparks like when a doll is held in the arms by a little girl and enjoys the company of its owner! Watch Mojo better get this guy in their list. The FBI too. Suddenly, all the stuffed animals he was holding all turn into a powerful ball energy. But Tail Red's suit quickly catches up on this. The combat gear flows with an electric power that Tail Red releases with a scream.
Aurora Pillar!
It strikes through the heavens, making Lizard Gildy think that Tail Red missed. But the light comes back with a boomerang, striking him before he can even throw his ball of energy. The power paralyzes him, giving Tail Red the chance to strike him with blazing fire called
Break Release!
Slicing the giant lizard in half. Strangely enough, Lizard Gildy thanks her for having learned the true strength and beauty of Twin Tails. And with his dying breath, he makes a final request. He would like to fondle her twin tails. Tail Red quickly reacts in disgust and refuses, making Lizard Gildy scream, "Cute!" before bursting into ashes. What's left of him is a blue diamond with an embossed teddy bear. Tail Red catches it and quickly dives into the ground, slicing the sacred ring. And thus, all of the lost twin tails are back. Irina approaches Tail Red and thanks her for rescuing them. She admires her bravery and strength, especially given her tiny stature. Tail Red assures her that they will meet again, and even leaves with the cheesiest yet oddest string of words known to man.
If you love twin tails, anything is possible.
Now, somewhere in another dimension, more monstrous Elamarians are watching the battle on Earth. That is literally the pinnacle of twin-tailedom that they have sought. Brace your hearts! Shouts their leader, and they scream in unison. Finally waking up from his slumber, Soji realizes he's back in his room, and he's lying on Twirl's lap. Aika comes crashing into the room, furious at Twirl for leaving her behind. With everything done and over with, Soji demands her to explain who the villains were and why he turned into a girl. Sighing, Twirl says that he can only find the answer if he touches her boingy-boingers. Aika quickly strikes her in opposition. Now back in the enemy's lair, the villains are debating on which Tail Red prototype is better, the picture or the doll. Their leader tells them to pause this debate and ask them who will be the next attacker, making the conference tremble for some reason. Back in Soji's room, Twirl tells them about Ultimagil, who has overrun countless parallel worlds and is now targeting the Earth, so they can rob it of the affinity they call Elomera. Affinities are where our hearts seek shelter, while Elamarians are spirit beings feeding on that same energy. Believe it or not, the twin tail affinity is the strongest, so Soji is the perfect man for the job. The tail gear uses the wearer's affinity as a weapon to fight Elamarians. That's why Soji can efficiently utilize its power. Aika is baffled by all of this craziness. She says that if this is all about love, wouldn't love for family or friends be more fitting? Twirl disagrees and tells her that those are instinctual, so it's basically pleb love, unlike something you devote your life to. Yeah, girl really just said the virgin family love and the Chad twin tail love. So basically, they'll be saving the world through twin tails. Twirl tells Soji that she did not make a mistake choosing him to wear the tail gear because his love for twin tails is the strongest. I'm the chosen one? Asks Soji, barely able to believe all of this. Us too, Soji. Us too. Meanwhile, the opponents are still having a meeting about their next move, but their productivity is at an all-time low, since instead of planning, they're all just talking about how they want to cuddle that cutie-wootie Tail Red. Their leader tells them they've been blinded by her twin tails, but she will struggle when they take her. This lights something up in the villains, and they all volunteer to fight her in the next battle. One even plans on restraining her in a maid uniform, one that's oh so ideal for twin tails. Another suggests dressing her in a tank top and dousing her with water. After all, a damp hair and a see-through shirt is a sublime combination. Another lizard chimes in, recommending that they bind her firmly so that only her twin tails are moving. Their leader commends them for their admirable devotion, but in the end, they'll still decide on the next attacker through combat. So like for most anime, you have old villains beefing with high schoolers, but for this one, we have old villains simping for them. Back to Soji and the gang, he asks Twirl again why he had to transform into a little girl. Twirl answers that when a man and a woman love each other very much— okay, whoa, Twirl. Before she could say anything stupid, Aika stops her and locks her with her thighs. Not wanting to get attacked again, she says that she'd rather not tell them the reason because it's personal. But the real point is, she just has a thing for girls. But honestly, this is about the most normal thing that's come out of her mouth at this point. But when you really think about it, another good reason is that the form is good for attracting their twin-tailed crazy enemies, as its cuteness disarms them. Soji suddenly remembers the gem he found after Lizard Gildy perished. Twirl explains that it is Lizard Gildy's affinity, and they called them Elomera orbs. Soji tells them that when he touched it, his thoughts were filled with dolls, which means Lizard Gildy's affinity is with dolls. Twirl clarifies that Lizard Gildy actually loves girls holding dolls. Soji is confused by this. If Lizard Gildy observes such affinity, he would then erase all that he loves. Little girls won't love holding dolls anymore, leaving him with nothing to admire. Twirl agrees with this. Elamarians are indeed paradoxical beings. In other words, the show is saying that if you found a plot hole in your own story, just chalk it up to paradox. Meanwhile, in the Elamarians' hideout, Fox Gildy and Turtle Gildy are the only ones left. They're so hell-bent on winning so they can destroy Tail Red, and neither wants to give up. And thus, their fearsome battle commences. It's a fight so gruesome, you won't even dare imagine it. It is a giant Jenga battle. Gotcha. On the other hand, Soji mentions that they don't know much about Twirl yet, and she's more than happy to oblige. And by obliging, she turns the light off, bars Aika with police tape, and gets on Soji's bed. "Come to bed and you'll know me," she says invitingly. Aika gets her nth aneurysm for the day and calls Twirl Tatas for brains. Said Tatas for brains sheepishly tells them that her story's a little dark, so she wanted to lighten the mood up by turning it into a pillow talk. Soji insists that talking normally is fine, so Twirl begins with her story of how Ultimagil conquered their world. There were no deaths as they only stole affinities, but they left behind a gray, featureless world empty of hopes and dreams. Once affinities are stolen, they only have a day or so to restore them, meaning there's no hope for Twirl's world to recover. With a burning passion, Soji promises to protect this world and avenge Twirl. Of course, she is delighted by this, and requests to have a secret base underneath this house to support him in battle. While this conversation has been going on, it's revealed that Soji's mom has got it going on. It's revealed that she's been listening in on them the entire time. Holding a tray with 3 cups of tea, she says to herself, "The time has finally come." Though Soji and Aika disapprove of Twirl's absurd idea, she's still determined that she could finish building the base overnight. She just needs Soji's mom's permission to live there for a bit. They tell her that's impossible, but Miharu barges in and approves of the plan. Miharu sits with them and tells them about her dream of being a superheroine. But since Soji's dad knocked her up, the dream came to a halt. But it would travel down to the umbilical cord, and now it can live on through her son. Soji is aghast and wonders if she did anything before he was born, and Miharu just proposes that she's sure his father wanted to be a superheroine when he was young too. And at that point, Soji's patience is at the end of its rope. Twirl then butts in, saying that she has a question, and when Miharu opens the floor to her, she says, "I don't know what to do. We don't have a spare futon. Oh, I know. Why don't you stay in Soji's room?" Well, that wasn't exactly a question, that's just what she wanted Miharu to say. And say that, Miharu does, leaving the two friends flabbergasted. When Miharu instructs Twirl to make a man out of Soji, Aika drags the woman outside to talk to her in private. She tells Miharu that her idea is going to violate Soji's chastity, but that's exactly what Mama wants. In fact, she's always fantasized about a hot hottie from another world coming over to shake things up and start a group party. Oh god, what kind of mom is this? Aika asks that too, and Miharu goes on to say that all she wants for her baby boy is to get a girlfriend. She was rooting for Aika, but she never got the courage to step up, so she's happy that this unprincipled woman with a deep interest in Soji's boyberries came around. Suddenly, Twirl shows up, saying that she is far from unprincipled, but she does have an interest in her son's boyberries. Fed up with the madness, Aika decides to go home and warns Soji to keep his guard up, as she believes that Twirl's still hiding something. Aika points out that if the Elamarians stole all of the affinities in Twirl's world, how did she get the twin tail affinity that she used for Tail Gear's core? Before jumping out of Soji's window to reach her house, she reminds him to stay wary. The next day, Soji and Aika are greeted by their male classmates' obsession with Tail Red. Soji gets uncomfortable with this perversion and warns them that they might get jailed for their weird behavior. His classmates don't care and mock him instead. Well, Soji, I guess now you know how women feel, huh? Just then, everyone is advised to go to the school gym for an assembly. As weird as it can get, the meeting is about Tail Red as Arena shares her experience of being rescued by this heroine. She tells them that she immediately fell in love with her, and even calls Tail Red the new age messiah. As Soji and Aika are walking home, a large image of Ultimagil shows up from the sky. Not just in Japan, but all over the world. They speak of not wanting to harm anyone, but rather stealing the light that dwells in their hearts. Resistance is futile, and those who submit themselves will live. This message angers Soji, and he promises that he won't ever allow them to rob their world of love and passion. The red bracelet suddenly appears in his hand, and Twirl reports that she has detected an Elamarian attack in Kyoto High School. Twirl also improved the bracelet and implemented a voice activation feature. As Soji yells, "Tail on!" he quickly changes into the charming heroine Tail Red. As Tail Red reaches Kyoto High School, she sees Turtle Gildy messing with the girls in their bloomers and immediately strikes an attack, causing him to fly a few miles back. Right after, the girls crowd over Tail Red, asking for pictures and autographs, as she has become an international icon. If you're wondering where Turtle Gildy went, we don't know. But that's enough battle for today. Guess winning in Jenga isn't worth it, huh? The time has finally come to reveal Twirl's secret base. Soji and Miharu are amazed by how high-tech everything is, though Aika still has her doubts. Seeing as there's a lot of tech and upgrades that Soji will be using there, it's clear that he'll be facing hundreds or even millions of Elamarians, which Aika sternly opposes. Twirl discloses that she found another suitable individual for the tail gear, and Aika supports this, telling her to give it to the person. Twirl, however, tells her that this candidate is far too violent and brutal. A real demon, if you will, so she mustn't have it. Why do I get the feeling that Twirl's talking about Aika? Anyways, the Elamarian alarm promptly then beeps and locates the enemies in Makuhari. Soji then swiftly transforms, ready to save the day. Since Soji became tail red, the Elamarian kept sending monsters of the day to various places all over the world. She has become a worldwide cultural phenomenon. News, blogs, and social media sites are filled with admiration and curiosity about her, launching her to internet sensation status. Even Erina remains completely obsessed with her. She remembers that they received a request to form a Twintails club, but Mikoto, her personal maid, says they know nothing about the club's future activities, and teachers are all rejecting the idea of becoming its advisor. One night, in Twirl's secret base, she calls upon Aika to watch something with her. Twirl shares that Soji shyly asks her if his combat gear as tail red is removable, and she confirms this. Finally, to Twirl's delight, Soji is interested in the female body. On Twirl's screen, they see Soji transforming into Tail Red in the bathroom. Tail Red slowly takes off her gloves, which excites Twirl. Aika is confused about what to feel and asks herself if this is even appropriate. She imagines how Soji's going to explore Tail Red's body, and with her guilt plunging into overdrive, she covers her eyes. Twirl then mentions that he's reaching straight for the jackpot, making Aika look. But as it turns out, Soji's just smitten with touching Tail Red's twin tails. Twirl then teases Aika, saying that Soji no longer needs her since he already has his own to caress. Aika is about to hit her, but a robot defends Twirl. It is Anti-Aika System 1.0, designed to protect frail maidens from tyrants, and it's called the Icombatter. But is Aika darling phased? Of course not. She smirks innocently, before effortlessly kicking the robot to its own demise. The following day, an Elamarian attack resurfaces again, but before Soji proceeds to battle, Twirl tells him about the Elamarician, which gives Tail Red the chance to draw upon the power of the affinity orbs he has collected. However, Soji refuses as he wants to fight using his powers only. Tail Red arrives at the location, but there's no one around, except for Fox Gildy. She immediately prepares her sword, but Fox Gildy's gaze is fixated on her ribbons. Apparently, he has an affinity for ribbons, which gets him more excited since the one Tail Red is wearing is the same thing that slew his comrades. Fox Gildy wraps Tail Red with his ribbons, then removes it too. The ribbon then turns into a ball as Fox Gildy summons another being. But it doesn't stop there, as the ribbons slowly turn into a duplicate image of Tail Red. However, it's just a mere doll that Fox Gildy can control since he doesn't possess the doll affinity, but he sure can play with it, and by playing with it, he's bathing it while it's completely bare. Aika and Twirl command Tail Red to attack her duplicate, but for some reason she's holding back. Tail Red cries in helplessness as she cannot possibly hurt a twin tail, but because of her carelessness, Fox Gildy wraps a ribbon around her hand and transfers her inside the duplicate, leaving her more helpless as she's now tied like a present waiting to be unwrapped. Enraged by all of these shenanigans, Aika insists that she has to do something to help Tail Red before Fox Gildy could do unimaginable things to her. Twirl comments that sounds kind of fun, but with threats of violence blaring from the demonic Aika, she finally admits that Aika's compatible with the tail gear. However, she doesn't want to put her in harm's way since Aika's her only friend in this world.
Aw, that's so sweet.
Is what Aika would say if she bought it. Heh, right. Twirl's just lying. She actually had a plan from the beginning. She was going to tell Soji that they need to integrate Soji's bodily data into hers to preserve the tail gear. So basically, she wanted to use fake science to get him to touch her naughties. But if she gives one to Aika, she'll have to rub nubs with her to keep up the charade. With her BS tolerance in the trenches, and rightfully so, Aika slaps Twirl around, demanding her to tell the actual truth. And finally, she reveals that the tail gear is designed for well-endowed women, so it probably won't fit Aika. But since she doesn't have the time to go, "What did you say about my chest?" on her, she insists that she doesn't care. She accepts the challenge of owning the other tail gear, so she can save Soji. But Twirl has one condition. Aika has to promise she'll let Twirl be Soji's first time. Aika thinks this is ridiculous, but Twirl is serious about it. Aika, being herself, punches Twirl once again and grabs the bracelet, immediately transforming herself. She quickly teleports to save Tail Red and introduces herself as Tail Red's twin tail duo, Twirl Blue. Fox Gildy smoothly wraps a ribbon around her, but she effortlessly dissolves it like paper. Taking his chances, Fox Gildy reveals the tail red in front of tail blue, knowing so well that she cannot Okay, never mind. Fox Gildy is confused by this, but Tail Blue tells him that the fake would always be fake, and there is only one thing in this universe that she loves that much. As Fox Gildy prepares his attack, Tail Blue uses Turtle Gildy's Bloomer Affinity, which apparently commands gravity and anti-gravity. She turns Fox Gildy's ribbons into a heavy stone-like object, then sends it off flying in the air. Finishing her attack, she calls upon Wave Lance. It creates a wave circling around Fox Gildy, rendering him unable to do anything. She then strikes her lance directly at Fox Gildy's heart, finishing him off with a clean swoop. News reporters recognize a new heroine, but Tail Blue quickly sets off with Tail Red. Fox Gildy's affinity collaborates with Tail Blue's gear, giving her a sturdy flap on her hair, making her able to fly. Later in the news, Tail Red is still being admired by everyone, while they also speculate that Tail Blue might be a copycat villain. And that's what we get for sensationalizing stories. So one day in school, Soji feels like it's his birthday as almost all the girls are wearing twin tails. Erina approaches and happily tells them that someone else is there to finally help Tail Red beat the enemies. As she's fawning over the heroes, she looks at Soji intently and stops talking, but Erina doesn't explain herself and turns to leave. Before she goes, she mentions that Soji's club application has been approved. While on the monsters' end, they've been giving it their all to attack the Twin Tails, but since each one of them has its own agenda, they keep getting distracted from their actual mission. Until now, the Twin Tails are unbeatable. Now, in the enemy's conference room, Swan Gildy volunteers himself as the next attacker. However, their leader has to test him first by bringing his computer in. Now, what's Swan Gildy's affinity, you might ask? Why, it's nurses! He just can't resist their nursely charms, and because of that, he completely and utterly failed the test. At this point, Drag Gildy's pissed at their lack of promising candidates, so he subjects himself to battle. Back on Earth, the alarm sets off, sensing a more powerful monster, one that's unlike any of the others they previously fought. Tail Red quickly arrives at the location, but she doesn't see anyone around her. To her surprise, Drag Gildy strikes in an unexpected blow. Lucky for her, she's quick to react and manages to avoid a fatal injury. With that, Drag Gildy announces that there's no one who can match his obsession with twin tails, not anyone else in this universe. He knows that a twin-tailed girl will one day wash his back with her hair, so he keeps it smooth and scratchless to savor that moment. Of course, Tail Red's offended by this, because she's the ultimate twin-tail lover, not him. She tries to attack that dastardly villain to no avail. She can't even give him a single slash. His sword strikes ring out with divine speed and reveals itself to be made up of twin tails too. They both attack each other and compliment how their charges are somehow similar in power. They agree that if they weren't enemies, they'd be good friends and could have shared their love for twin tails. In the background, Tail Boo's watching the entire scene, unable to believe just what she's hearing. Drag Gildy's surprised by Tail Boo's presence, and he makes an interesting comment.
Witnessing it for myself, I can see that it was the warrior from the other planet that put you up to this.
He continues to explain that there was once a girl who challenged and resisted them all by herself. She was wearing the same armor as Tail Blue, but had bigger jugs than her. Regardless, the splendor of that girl's resistance was precisely why her planet lost the war. She was heralded as the world's savior, and people were so enthralled by her twin tails that they started copying her, which made the affinity even stronger. That also made their world an ideal hunting ground for them, making it much more easier to destroy it. To her horror, Tail Red realizes that this is exactly what's happening in their world right now. Tail Blue falls to her knees, realizing that they've been duped by Twirl. She may not be working with the bad guys, but she's probably trying to have other worlds meet the same fate as hers. Tail Red, however, refuses to believe that. Drag Gildy adds that he's only telling them this because Tail Red's affinity is worthy of respect. He understands her love for Twin Tails is so deep, so he wants to battle fair and square. He also wishes that Tail Red will not be consumed by despair once this world meets its end. Hearing that, Tail Red expresses just how happy she is that the love for Twin Tails is growing worldwide. Back then, she was afraid that it would be just a passing fad, but if they're after it, it only means girls genuinely love it. Boy oh freaking boy, she's pumped up over the idea that if she beats this bozo, Twin Tails will be the foundation of the new world order. Tail Blue ends up laughing hysterically at this. Soji's delusions really are limitless. As Drag Gildy and Tail Red get ready for another round, they are halted by another figure, calling herself the masked twin-tail. That's just Twirl, who came to the battleground to explain herself. When Red fought the Elamarians for the first time, they saw the strongest twin-tail, not just because they wanted to steal her attribute. Their plan was more insidious than that. They wanted to mold the person with the strongest twin-tail attribute into a hero of sorts, one that people can rally behind and try to emulate. It's what they've been doing to the other worlds. In short, they all fell for the Elamarians' trap. Twirl developed the tail gear based on the information that the Elamarians intentionally leaked, and fought them the way they wanted her to. But by the time she realized that she was being used, it was already too late. Dragildy is confused. If she's the warrior they fought with back then, why can't he sense any affinity from her? Twirl replies that she gave her affinity away, but she never stopped fighting. If she did, the flame of the Twin-Tail's affinity would be extinguished, and she could not stand that. However, no matter her persistence, she lost it in her world. To take responsibility, she put her affinity into the tail gear Red is wearing right now. Dragildy then summons his 987 Ultoroids and tells Twirl that having two twin-tails would just speed up their invasion. Tail Red disagrees, as being a twin-tail does not only come from their hairstyles but also from their hearts. So there are 3 of them. On the other hand, Tail Blue thinks that all of this is just insane. At least they both know that Twirl didn't fool them. Blue apologizes for doubting her. To continue the battle, Tail Blue takes on all of the Ultoroids, while Tail Red faces Dragildy in a one-on-one combat. Tail Red attacks with such passion and tenacity that she has finally inflicted a wound upon Dragildy's sacred back. With no other choice, Dragildy shows his true form, a giant, muscular twin-tail. Again, they complement each other's love for twin-tails while sword fighting. I swear to God, this anime just ran the word twin-tails through several sentence generators and ran with it. Nevertheless, the battle between Tail Red and Dragildy is so profound that it's making Twirl cry with happiness. Even Tail Blue is amazed by their divine powers. She then unleashes 100% of her power to defeat all 987 monsters, causing her to revert back to Ica and collapse afterwards. Meanwhile, Dragildy commends Tail Red's strength and admits that she is definitely the love of his life. However, there's nothing he can do but bid her farewell as he raises his sword. He flicks Tail Red's sword away from her and readies himself for the final blow when Tail Red suddenly matches his strike with another sword. Twin blades for twin tails to the rescue. Tail Red unleashes all her powers and concentrates them all with every attack of her sword. In the face of such splendid power, the immobilized Dragildy can only accept his ultimate fate. However, he is beyond grateful to be finished off by a beautiful little girl, just like how he had envisioned his death.
Let's meet again in Elysium,
are his final words as he perishes for all eternity. Thanks to our mighty heroines, the world's twin-tail affinity has been preserved. Now, I've said twin-tails enough to last me an entire lifetime, so I'll just end the recap here. Bye!
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.